Okay everyone, in this next lesson we will talk about the text shadow property that will be allowing us to create a text shadow for text inside of our elements. So this property will be adding shadow to the text. So before we talked about how to add shadow to our element, specifically here the div element, and we were able to target the main block or the element here from where we added box shadow around it. But for now, in this session, we will be talking about on how we can add shadow on this text inside of the aside element. So similar with the box shadow property, we have some default values that we can use. We can also declare a number of text shadow values that will be separated by comma, similar with the box shadow property. So here, let's go inside of our code editor and let's see how this will work. So text shadow. So keynote to remember is similar with the box shadow. We will be required to go and declare a horizontal shadow and a vertical shadow. So let's say we have 10 pixels here, and let's go use FF005V here, or B as in boy. So we have the color declaration that we've set here, and we have the required values, which is the horizontal shadow and the vertical shadow, which is the second declaration here. So let's first go check our browser here. Let's see what will happen. And you would see that we now have 10 pixels horizontal value that made it go to the right side, and 10 pixels vertical value that made it go down from the top to the bottom. So let's try to decrease the horizontal value here. Let's say I give this a 0 value. Let's see what will happen in our browser. So you would see that it went back a little to the left side. Okay, so you would see now it's on it's aligned according to the main text that we have here. And if we go give a value of, let's say, -5 first here. Let's give this a 5 pixels first. Let's see how that will look like in our browser here. Now you would see that it's a lot closer to the main text. It went up a little bit. And if I go and give the value of -15 pixels. So let's now check our browser. You will see that it went up. As I've said, it will be accepting negative values for the horizontal and the vertical shadows. If you remember, that was also the case with the box shadow. And if we go and try to give this a -10 pixels, let's see if that will work. You would see that it went to the left side of the screen, because we are now given a value, or we have given it a value of -10 pixels. So if I go back to our code editor here, and I would want to go and remove the two values here, and then give an optional value of, let's say, 5 pixels for the third declaration here, which is the blur radius. So if we go and try to go back to our browser here, you would see now we have some blur radius inside of our text shadow. Another keynote that we can do here would be to declare multiple text shadow properties by adding a comma, and we can just press on the enter key. That will totally have no effect, any additional effect, guys. That will just be for visual clues, guys. That's why I'm doing this right now. So let me just go and add some space here, so at least it will be a lot easier for us to read our code. Let me remove the comma here, and then let's try to go and look for a suitable color combination for this specific color. So let me go and open our search box here and WebAIM color contrast. So if you're not sure about what color combination you would want to go and use, you can use some contrast checker such as this one that will be allowing you to test on whether the contrast of your background and text for accessibility will be good for your website or the web design that you're building, and it will be in compliance with the WCAG. Or when we say WCAG, let me just go and search that here. Web Content Accessibility Guidelines of the w3.org. So if we go to this website, you would see that there are some content here that will help you plan for your website. So I would really suggest that you go and look through this and read through the documentation. But I won't be going through this because this is more on the aesthetic design of your website. But this will be a good thing to know. So at least you will be able to follow the web content accessibility guidelines that is being set by the w3.org. So let's go back here, everyone, in our contrast checker website. If we go down here and we go and put our value for the background color that we, or the text shadow that we used in this example, 5B, you would see it's failing the 3.88 by 1 ratio here if we give it a white color. So because we would want to add another text shadow after the text shadow that we made here that will not be colored white because it's failing the contrast ratio here. So let's go down here and let me just go and read the explanation here for the use of the contrast checker here. Enter a foreground and background color in RGB hexadecimal format. We have here the shorthand version of the hexadecimal code or version. So you would see, as we've discussed before, we have the FD3, which are the first values for the red, green, and blue. So we can choose a color using the color picker. So that means we can go and use the color picker here. Okay. And we can use the lightness slider for adjusting the selected color. So for the WCAG 2.0, level AA requires a contrast ratio of at least 4.5 by 1 for normal text and 3 by 1 for large text or larger text. The 2.1 requires a contrast ratio of at least 3 by 1 for graphics and user interface components such as form input borders. WCAG level AAA requires a contrast ratio of at least 7 to 1 for normal text and 4.5 to 1 for large text. So large text is defined as 14 point, typically 18.66 pixels and bold or larger, or 18 point, typically 24 pixels or larger. So let's just go and use the slider here, and if we go down, you will see here that we were able to increase the contrast ratio to 5.4 by 1. We did fail here the WCAG AAA standards, but let's go first try out the color black here inside of our code. So let me go and replace this 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. And let's see our website here. Let's go check how will that look like. So you would see that it has added the background color black behind the foreground color or the first text shadow that we have. So again, this is going to be more on the layers and how we did the back shadow. This will work the same way. So if we go and have this negative, let's say this one, negative 10 pixels, and this one, negative 10 pixels. And let's remove the values here just to show you that we have here the same thing. So I'm going to give this negative 10, sorry, and this one 5. So there will be a little bit of distinguishment on the location. So you would see here that the flow, the original text, which is white, we have the text shadow, which is the FF005B, and the black color. So that's how the layer is working. We have the first, second, and the third layer. Okay, I just wanted to show you that. Now let's go back to our code and let's give this the 0 pixels here. Let me just go back here. Now let's go and give this a value of -5 pixels, and this one value of 5 pixels. Let's see what will happen if we give the blur value here in the text shadow. Will it be the same when we declare the box shadow with a blur radius? Will it be working or not? So let's go back to our project here. You would see that the text shadow was not applied in the browser. Even though we declared here -5 pixels, the -5 pixels for the text shadow, for the first text shadow, was not displayed because again, the value negative is not going to be accepted for the blur radius declaration value. And even though we have here a positive value of 5 pixels for the second text shadow declaration that we have here, it also didn't work. This just might be a certain case scenario that you might encounter, and I just wanted to clarify things. Similar with the box shadow property, if we give a negative value for the text shadow blur radius value here, it will not be working. Okay, so let's go and remove that, then go back to our browser here and refresh. Now we have a text shadow of the FF005B and the text shadow of black. So if we want to go and pass this, what we actually just do here is to increase this a little bit. We can then adjust the color that we will be using in our text shadow. So at least it will be passing the WCAG standard even for the AAA standards. Now let's go and try to get this and apply it in our project. This is highly recommendable, guys, that you go and check this out and use the recommendation by the WCAG. Well, of course, because it's the standards for the web. And if we go look at our project here, for me, it actually already looks good. But if we apply the contrast checker here, let's see what will happen. You will see it's much better because you will see here that it's giving emphasis to the main text, and the text shadow is just subtle color that adds to the aesthetic of the main text. Okay, so I'm hoping, guys, that you were able to understand how to use the text shadow property and you were able to maximize and learn the use of the contrast checker here. So I would highly recommend that you read through the web content accessibility guidelines, especially for planning for your designs and planning for the color combinations that you will be using for your website as a whole. So thank you everyone, and see you on the next lesson.